The Victorian Football League is the most prominent Australian football league outside of the AFL. Despite its name, it now includes several interstate teams. It's made up of some reserve teams and some independent clubs, and is semi-professional, so a lot of the grounds are quite modest. But most of them have a storied history, so let's check them out. Box Hill City Oval, Box Hill Hawks. We start off with one of the most basic grounds in the league. So basic that I'd probably say that the highlight of the ground is the hedges that surround it, which not only look good but stop people watching the game without a ticket. Other than that, most of the capacity is coming from terracing or just people standing around the boundary fence. As you'll see later on, bucket seating is a luxury in this league. Brighton Homes Arena, Brisbane Lions. This is the newly built training facility that the Brisbane Lions now call home. And as far as training facilities go, it seems pretty ideal for the VFL, seating around 600 or so in the main stand in comfort and undercover. There's also a wraparound concourse for ease of navigation, some interesting seating options throughout, and overall, I quite like how despite being a modern facility, they've still incorporated plenty of red brick. Icon Park, Carlton Blues. This is yet another training facility used by the AFL team. There are a lot of them, I'll probably stop mentioning it. Despite that, this is probably my favourite VFL stadium. It's had some demolition work done since its AFL days ended in the mid-2000s, but I'm glad they've kept most of those distinctive wavy roof stands, and the colourful seating within intact. It has retained its unique character, and with the advent of the AFLW, Women's Football League, it's still going strong. Casey Fields, Casey Demons. This is a pretty typical example of a newly built suburban football ground, with just a slightly larger capacity. There are some seats in the main stand, and some covered terracing over on the other side. But most of the capacity is coming from the grass berms that surround the majority of the field. I'm sure they're much better on a sunny day. It's simple, but at least it seems like it's kept in good condition. Piranha Park, Coburg Lions. Piranha Park seems like a theme park for thrill seekers, although I believe it's actually a myth that piranhas are man-eaters. They are in fact a very sexist species and only eat women. Anyway, this old ground does have one small red brick clad stand, but almost the entire field is surrounded by uncovered terracing. It's certainly not pretty, but this is. Victoria Park, Collingwood Magpies. For any British people watching, Collingwood is the Millwall of Australian football. For Americans, they are the Raiders. For the Canadians, I don't know. This is their reserve team though, of course. But just like Carlton's Icon Park, Victoria Park was Collingwood's actual home back in the day. Most of the stands of this ground have been demolished since its glory days, and have been replaced with community space, as they like to call it. They've struck a nice balance. Windy Hill, Essendon Bombers. Surely that's not. Oh, there we go. These are the complications that arise when you name a perfectly flat field Windy Hill. This is a similar situation to the last one, although more of the original structures are still standing, and they're looking a little worse for wear. I believe there are redevelopment plans akin to Victoria Park, but for now it's a derelict yet interesting relic of the past. Victoria University Whitten Oval, Footscray Bulldogs. Footscray Bulldogs. By the early 2000s, this former top-tier stadium was looking pretty derelict like the last one. However, it's been undergoing a multi-stage redevelopment, boosted by the success of women's football, a sport that this venue often hosts. Eventually there will be actual seating surrounding the entire field, and all the buildings on site will be modernised. I'm glad to see stuff like this, because it was a bit of a shame that these former AFL stadiums were left to rot. After all, the Melbourne clubs moved to the Docklands and the G. Kinetic Stadium, Frankston Dolphins. The suburb of Frankston gets a bad rap because of the way it is, but you can't say a bad word about the beachside location. As you may have noticed from the aerial shot, the ground is very narrow, so it comes as no surprise that cricket isn't played here in the summer, as it is at a lot of the independent VFL grounds. So there's no square in the centre square. It's actually a pretty cool ground with an interesting mix of stands. GMHBA Stadium, Geelong Cats. The stadium might seem a little out of place, and that's because it's the actual home of Geelong's first team, who compete in the fully professional AFL. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the only stadium mentioned in the club's song. Our banners fly high, from dawn to dark, down at GMHBA Stadium. Or you know what, I think they used the non-commercial name, Cardinia Park. That makes more sense. Yeah, this is obviously one of the best stadiums in the league. It would have been even before the recent renovations, but they have obviously improved it further. Metricon Stadium, Gold Coast Suns. It's yet another and the only other AFL stadium you'll see in this video. Originally a simple stadium used mostly for cricket, it was completely redeveloped prior to the launch of the Gold Coast Suns, and has since even gone on to host the Commonwealth Games. It's not very built up compared to most AFL stadiums. I mean, the exterior consists of mostly just the underside of the concrete stands, but still, I think it looks pretty good. You certainly don't see a red and yellow colour scheme very often. Blacktown ISP Oval, Greater Western Sydney Giants. The stadium is part of a rather large sports complex. The ISP in fact stands for International Sports Complex. Although the capacity is quite large, there are just about 1,000 or so seats in this small stand, with the rest of the capacity coming from the huge grass berm that surrounds the rest of the field. So kind of like Casey Fields, its capacity to host a large crowd is kind of dependent on the weather. Jenna Steele Oval, Northern Bullants. Overall, this is a pretty tired looking ground. That's probably due to the financial troubles that the club has endured in recent years. There are some positives, however. The main stand with its elevated seating offers a great view of the ground, and in a strange tie-in to the club's name, they've actually brought in dozens of colonies of bull ants into the grass embankments, just to keep the kids entertained. Ardent Street Oval, North Melbourne Kangaroos. Okay, now it's a stretch to call this one a stadium. It was back in the day, but at the moment it's just a simple training ground where the reserves happen to play. If you're someone who needs to be seated to enjoy watching your team play, you'll have to get in early. There are like 12 seats here. I mean, I can't see any, but there has to be some, surely. BTU Stadium, Port Melbourne Borough, who are the most successful club in VFL history, which is impressive considering they're not affiliated with an AFL team. Or perhaps that's an advantage somehow? I don't know. The stadium was renovated a few years ago, which included the addition of an interesting looking wooden building. Kinda strange, but also kinda cool. That's all good, but the best aspect of this stadium is the ever-changing skyline backdrop. Swinburne Centre, also known as Punt Road, which is a fitting name for a football ground if ever there was one. It's home to the Richmond Tigers. Although it's one of the smaller former top-tier stadiums in this league, it's one of the more interesting grounds for sure. I just like the way it combines the ancient, quaint little Jack Dyer stand with the ultra-modern, whatever this is. Sadly, the Jack Dyer stand is set to be demolished and replaced with a newer version of it. But to be fair, it is looking a little rickety. Trevor Barker Beach Oval, Sandringham Zebras. As the name suggests, and as your eyes confirm, the stadium's right by the beach, although unfortunately spectators don't really get an ocean view. But you can't have your cake and eat it. Yes, you can actually, I did that yesterday. There are just a couple of small stands at this ground, including one that reminds all the pilots flying above which team plays here. That's a very important feature that is often overlooked at other grounds. Fankhauser Reserve, Southport Sharks. You'll notice that there is a ring of car parks around the field. That's actually quite a common sight at country footy grounds. Because the playing area is so large, there's just so much room for it. So you can just sit in your car, eat some dim sims and watch the game. Instead of clapping after a goal, people honk the horns. I'm not sure if that would be allowed here, but I can't see how that would police that. The Southport Sharks planned on building themselves a proper boutique stadium. Tramway Oval, Sydney Swans. The team representing the country's biggest city, actually, you know what, just yesterday I think Melbourne overtook Sydney, so I have to change that. The team representing the country's second biggest city plays at a ground with the smallest capacity. It's just a field next to the SCG. I'm not sure what else I can say, it's just what you'd expect from a typical training ground. Avalon Airport Oval, Werribee Tigers. It's a good thing they've got the Avalon Airport sponsorship, because the non-commercial name is Chirnside Park, which is also the name of a suburb on the other side of the city. And I can't help but feel that that has caused some confusion in the past, at least once or twice. Anyway, I quite like the newly built main stand. It wouldn't look out of place at Pont Road Oval. Other than that, you can tell it's a long way from the city centre. Nothing but trees in the background. Downer Oval, Williamstown Seagulls. I don't know what it is about the name Downer Oval, but I'm just not feeling it, you know. Nice ground though. Their rivals Port Melbourne might have a nice skyline backdrop, but Williamstown play at one of the few venues where you can actually see the ocean in the background whilst watching the game on TV. You can also see the city skyline way off in the distance as well, so there's a lot going for this place. So there you have it, the VFL Stadiums. As for my favourite, well, I kind of want to say Icon Park, but realistically, GMHBA Stadium is just that bit better. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, have a good one.